Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Valerie and I make sewn tutorials and patterns. So today I want to show you how to make this two-piece set that you saw in the preview. It consists of bustier top and a skirt, both with invisible zippers. So I'll guide you through all the steps how to make it. You can also download the pattern through the first link down below. The size range goes from XXS to XXL. So let's get into the tutorial. So to sew this set, you'll need 2 meters of fabric, at least 1.5 meters wide. I recommend using the suit-in fabric. You'll also need 2 invisible zippers, one 20 centimeters and the other 30 centimeters. So first, print out the pattern. The print setting should be A4 paper size and scale to fit the paper. After printing, don't forget to check the test square. It should measure exactly 5 by 5 centimeters. Once your pattern is printed, trim off the excess paper where the little scissors icons are. Tape all the sheets together and cut out all the pattern pieces. Before you cut your fabric, make sure to pre-shrink it, so it won't shrink later. You can either wash it or steam it with an iron. When you cut out the pieces, I recommend marking them with chalk right away, so you won't get confused later. For the top, you should have 4 fabric pieces for each pattern piece, one right and one left from the main fabric, and the same from the lining. The only exception is the center piece. You'll need just 2 of those, one from the main fabric and one from the lining. I'm using the same fabric for both, but you can choose a different fabric for the lining if you'd like. For the skirt, you should also have 4 pieces, 2 from the main fabric and 2 from the lining. Let's start with the top. Attach the center piece to the side pieces and connect the cup pieces. Seam allowance is 7 millimeters. Now join the back pieces. Next, join the cups together and then attach them to the front piece. I pin the pieces like this, inserting the pins into the seam so the seams align perfectly. Now attach the back pieces to the front of the top. And I did the same with the lining pieces. Then press the seams open. Now let's move on to the sleeves. First, we need to sew the darts on all the sleeve pieces. I pin the darts so the lines match on both sides and then sew a stitch. At the end, I like not to backstitch, but tie a small knot by hand. This way the dart is less bulky and there's no bubble at the tip. After that, I press the darts. For the pieces that will be joined, I press the darts in opposite directions, so there's no extra bulk. Now, put the sleeve pieces right sides together and sew on the top and bottom seams. Then turn the sleeve right side out, trim any excess, and give it a good press. And you can set the sleeves aside for now. Before inserting the invisible zipper, you should also pre-shrink it with an iron, because it can shrink too. I also fused the edges of the top where the zipper will be attached with fusible tape. This isn't necessary, but it helps make sure your fabric doesn't stretch while sewing in the zipper. Now fold the top like this. From the bottom edge, I measure 6 centimeters. That's where my zipper will end. From the top to this mark, we need to make a long basting stitch, so it's easy to remove later. After the mark, make a back stitch and continue with a regular stitch. The seam allowance is 1 centimeter. After that, press the seam allowances open. Then unpick the basting stitch up to the mark. It was only there to help press the seam open neatly. Now take your zipper and place it face down, with the teeth facing up. Position it so the zipper teeth start about 7 mm from the top edge of the garment. Next, unzip it and pin both sides to the seam allowances. We'll sew it close to the zipper teeth. I recommend basting it first to make it easier. I'm using an invisible zipper foot. Mine is for an industrial machine. The home versions look a bit different. Sew the zipper from top to bottom on both sides. Once the zipper is sewn in, check how it works and how visible it is. Ideally, you shouldn't see it at all. Now, take the lining and pin them right sides together along the top edge. Then sew with a 7 mm seam allowance. At the sides, where the zipper is, I stopped about 1 centimeter before the edge. Align this edge with the zipper and stitch it down. I also basted it and switched to a regular zipper foot, because here you don't need to sew right next to the tees, just close to them. And trim all the corners. Here's how it looks. On the lining, I also stitched about 6 centimeters from the bottom, just like we did on the main piece. Now you can trim the zipper. There's no need to finish the edge since it will be hidden inside. Next, we need to open the spots where the sleeves will go. They're marked on the pattern. I inserted the sleeve from the right side and pinned them from the wrong side. Then just sew along the same lines where you opened the seam. Now, on the lining, make a small opening, about 8 centimeters, for turning the top right side out. and secure both ends of the opening with back stitches. Through this opening, we'll connect the bottom edges of the top. Place them right sides together, pin, and sew 7mm from the edge. I often get questions from people who struggle with this step. They can seem to turn the top right side out completely or wonder why we need to turn it at all. Our top is basically a circle, and you can't fully turn a circle inside out. So we turn and pull through just segments of the top. It may look like a weird bundle of fabric, but that's how it's supposed to be. Then we sew those segments together, turn everything back through the opening, and the result is beautifully finished top. Once everything is turned right side out, close the opening with blind stitches and give the top a good press. And that's it. The top is finished. Now let's move on to the skirt. First, we need to sew the darts on all the skirt pieces. I press the darts in opposite directions on the pieces that will be joined, to avoid extra bulk. Now, place the front and back pieces of the skirt right sides together. Next, take the zipper and place it in the same way we did it in the top, about 7mm below the top edge. I also made a mark where the zipper will end. Since the zipper is shorter, I marked 5cm from the end of the zipper, so that the slider stays below the mark and doesn't get in the way while sewing. Now, just like with the top, sew a lone basting stitch up to the mark. After the mark, backstitch and continue with a regular stitch. And sew the other side on the skirt with a regular stitch. After that, press all the seams open and unpick the basting stitches. I basted the zipper, and now I'm going to sew it close to the teeth. Then check to make sure everything works smoothly. Next, take the lining. I sew the front and back pieces together just like I did with the shell. Now, insert them into each other, right sides together, and pin along the top edge. And sew with the 7mm seam allowance. We do exactly the same as with the top. Here, I stopped 1cm from the end, aligned this edge with the zipper, and sew it as well. Here's how the zipper looks from the right side. I trimmed all the corners inside. And this is how it looks from the wrong side. All that's left is to finish the bottom. Just like with the top, I made an opening in the lining and secured both ends with the back stitches. Through this opening, align the bottom edges of the lining and the shell right sides together, pull them through the opening, and pin. Then sew along the edge. Finally, press the skirt well, and it's done. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, you can give this video a thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll see you in the next videos. Bye.